Hello everyone, it's been a while since I last posted about the Limits Company base ID only run, and that's for a good reason. Other than a few important things like getting the new Discord server set up, which you should totally join by the way, link in the description, and working on a text-based game I'm running, I've been stuck on one specific boss. Now, as is fast becoming tradition, let's play another guessing game. Which boss is the hardest of Kanto 6? If you're to say Heathcliff, then for a start you're cheating, that's the name for at least 3 boss fights. But secondly, if you're meaning to find a boss of the Kanto, you're incredibly far off the mark. No, the hardest boss of Kanto 6, at least in my current opinion, is the Heathcliff you have to fight in the basement before Heathcliff distorts. I was originally planning on making any videos before the full Kanto 6 and to claim their bones video was ready, but then I met this boss. As I spent hours rolling the dice over and over again hoping that I'd get a good attempt, this opinion started to change to that of the opinion that's making me make this video. That I'd beat the boss and then make a retrospective on the hardest boss of Kanto 6. Sadly that plan has been thrown off the rails. I still haven't beaten this Heathcliff. I've gotten close to getting it again, but I've never gotten lucky enough to get that one glorious attempt that would finish the fight for me. So I'm not making this video as a retrospective, but rather as a thorough breakdown of just what makes this Heathcliff so awful to fight, and my thoughts on what I'm going to be doing with the challenge in the future. So, without further ado, let's get into it. First of all, Sanity. You'll see when the full video comes out, but anything that messes with the way Sanity is handled in this game is an immediate red flag for the boss we're having to fight. For Heathcliff, who I'm going to be calling Backcliff from now on to avoid confusion, this is the incredibly simple clause that he doesn't lose sanity in any natural way. If you win a clash, you aren't making him lose any SP unless you're meeting a specific set of criteria. That is, rather simply, is Heathcliff winning the clash? If Heathcliff wins the clash, Backcliff loses 5 SP, and loses an additional 5 SP for every turn he hasn't hit Heathcliff. And that's it. Both of these can only proc once per turn, so if you fulfill those, that's it, that's all you're getting. If you aren't too familiar with Limits Company, there's a subtle emergent gameplay feature of the momentum of the fight. Essentially, for the first few turns whilst everyone has a 0 SP, the fight is balanced, relatively speaking. Then, by winning or losing clashes, the fight shifts in one direction or another, as the SP of one side begins to drop and the other side raises. Backcliff, however, does not engage in the momentum of the fight. But still, we do have a way to lower his SP by 10 every turn, right? That's enough to slowly get him to negative 45. Well, no. Backcliff has one more cheat up his sleeve, and that's the fact that he gains 15 SP every turn with no conditional attached. If you remember from just moments ago, the maximum we can decrease his SP by is 10 every turn. So not only does he get to start the fight with 15% more chance to hit heads than we do, he also effectively can't have his SP lowered at any point throughout the fight unless you've got a sinking team. And to syncing application on the base IDs, I have this to say. What's syncing? Still, you can kill a boss at 45 SP perfectly fine. I know I can personally. I've gotten this boss down to fairly low health before after all, and I've killed others that have been allowed to hit their peak perfectly fine. So it should come as no surprise to you that this wasn't the only trick Backcliff had up his sleeve. The next trick is this. All of his attacks target Heathcliff. Backcliff himself has a maximum speed of 5, with haste gained from certain conditionals, his shield mechanic that I'll explain later being the major. Meaning that, if we get unlucky, we may simply not be able to clash every attack heading Heathcliff's way. This turns this fight's RNG dependence from bad to hellish. At any point, entirely out of our control, Heathcliff can simply die. And if he dies, it's not a case of the fight simply going on without him. The moment he dies, the fight ends. All 3 of my good attempts ended this way, with Backcliff rolling a high speed and my team rolling a low one, me being forced to watch as Heathcliff was melted without anything I could do to stop it. If these were the only 2 things wrong with this fight, it may be bearable. A short, RNG-dependent fight is hellish, and not something I would recommend to anyone to do, but it's bearable. Which is why Backcliff has 3 entire phases. Literally 2,264 HP to clear, but with an effective HP of 2,830 due to resisting all damages at 0.8. It's not a simple case of quickly moving through the fight, having a few RNG checks in an otherwise fairly deterministic fight. You have to keep making them, again and again, attempting not to roll the chance to simply die flat out, against a boss that does everything in his power to not give you a fair fight. And we haven't even covered one of the mechanics that turns this fight from just bad to far, far worse. His shield. You probably remember his shield from the later fight, where you have to kill the enemy with the right shield so your entire team doesn't die to the Old King's attacks. Well, it's here too, doing something for any other team wouldn't be an issue, but for ours constitutes a major roadblock. Whenever you hit any of his shields, he gains 1 offense level. Now, thanks to the comments in the previous challenge video, I know this doesn't mean he gains an extra clashing value for every hit. However, he gains these levels up to 9 per turn, or an entire extra 3 points of clashing values. Not to mention that if you don't clear the shield in time, something is always going to happen, he gains an additional chunk of offense level above the 9 cap, in addition to all the levels he gained prior. This is, effectively, the nail in this coffin for this fight being anything bar a hellish slog. No clash can ever be above favoured other than some very rare circumstances or using ego, which in combination with all the other RNG checks of this fight simply makes it an unenjoyable hell to go through. So, by this point I should be able to tell you all that's possible, but insane to try. But I'm going to skip this boss on the grounds that it would take far too long to beat, that only a madman would actually do it. But that's just the thing. I'm mad. What's the point in a challenge run that gets given up when things get hard? None of you are watching this because it would be easy after all. So I'm not going to give in. In the coming days or even weeks I'll be putting more and more attempts in. I'll probably even stream some of them, so if you want to drop by for those then your presence will be greatly appreciated. Of course, if any of you have any other ideas, do leave them in the comment section down below. I read every comment, so if a suggestion for what to do ends up getting a lot of traction, it'll be the idea I follow through with for the actual challenge. I'd also like to hear your opinions on switching the formatting of these to periodic feedback rather than one episode of an entire Kanto at a time. It should do wonders for improving the regularity of the videos, although it may make them individually shorter. Now that we've reached the end of the video, I'd also like to quickly mention that I've set up a Patreon. By paying a monthly fee you gain access to benefits, not least of which being the reading of the name at the end of every episode in the future. But, as there are currently no Patreons for me to shout out, it's time for me to bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night. Stay safe out there everyone.